Picture England in the late 1500s. Elizabeth I as queen, rocking her ruffs and wigs, but also laying down the law that everyone must be Protestant. Attendance at church wasn't optional. It was like mandatory roll call, and if you skipped too many Sundays, you'd get fined or even jailed. Think of it as the Tudor version of no excuses, you will show up. Catholics, meanwhile, were in a bind. The Pope had excommunicated Elizabeth, calling her the pretended Queen of England and the servant of crime. Translation: Catholics were now seen as potential traitors. The poorer folks converted quickly. Latin Mass was confusing anyway, and fines were expensive. But the wealthy, educated recusants, those who refused to convert, clung to their faith, hiding priests in secret compartments called priest holes. Imagine royal guards barging into your house at 3 a.m. looking for a priest stuffed behind the pantry. Not exactly cozy. When Elizabeth died in 1603, Catholics hoped James VI of Scotland, now James I of England, might ease up. Spoiler, he didn't. He kept the fines, the raids, and the suspicion alive. Catholics were fed up, and some decided that if they couldn't change the system, they'd blow it up. Literally. Once upon a time, in York, England, there was a boy named Guy Fawkes. He wasn't born with a torch in one hand and a barrel of gunpowder in the other. No, he was born into a fairly ordinary family. His father worked for the Church of England, his mother had Catholic roots, and little Guy grew up straddling two worlds. Fast forward, Guy got married. Yes, our future terrorist celebrity once lived a very normal life. In 1590, he wed Maria Pauline, and together they had a son named Thomas Fawkes. Imagine Guy, the doting dad, bouncing baby Thomas on his knee, completely unaware that history would later remember him as the man with matches in the basement. At 21, Guy inherited land, 3.5 acres, stamped with his family crest, a proud falcon. He had a house, a wife, a child, and a respectable job as a footman for Anthony Brown, Viscount of Montague. Life was good, until Brown decided he didn't like Guy and fired him. Ouch. In those days, losing your lord's favor was like being cancelled on Twitter. It ruined your reputation. So what did Guy do? Did he sulk? Did he farm turnips? No, he packed his bags and left England for Flanders. There he joined the Spanish army in the 80 Years' War, fighting against Dutch Protestants. Spain was the self-proclaimed defender of the Catholic faith, and Guy, now calling himself Guido, because let's face it, Guido sounds way cooler on the battlefield, was described as tall, muscular, with reddish-brown hair and beard. He was praised as resolute and universally learned. Basically, he was the James Bond of Catholic soldiers, minus the tuxedo. But despite all this, no portrait of him was ever painted. The images we have today? Caricatures drawn after his death, making him look like a villain with black hair, a beard, and that famous upturned mustache. Meanwhile, back in England, Elizabeth I died, and King James I took the throne. Catholics thought, finally, a new king, maybe he'll be nice to us. Enter Thomas Percy, cousin of the Earl of Northumberland. Percy boldly asked James to show mercy to Catholics. James, wanting to look good, gave a vague answer. Don't worry, I've got no ill will toward Catholics. Percy ran home shouting, hooray, we're saved! For a year, Catholics breathed easy. No fines, no raids, no priests dragged from hiding holes. Some even dreamed James might convert to Catholicism. But then, Parliament noticed. The Protestant lords were furious. If we don't crush these Catholics, they'll rise up, they cried. So James brought back Elizabeth's harsh laws. Fines, raids, persecution, it all returned. Catholics felt betrayed. That false hope was the final straw. Enter Robert Catesby, the true mastermind. He was angry, and in 1603 he began plotting. He recruited Thomas Winter, John Wright, and Thomas Percy. Winter had gone to school with Guy Fawkes and thought, hey, I know a guy who knows gunpowder. Guy was perfect. Soldier, explosives expert, cool under pressure. In May 1604, the five men met at the Duck and Drake Inn in London. They whispered, swore oaths of secrecy, and began planning. Percy rented a house near Westminster. Guy moved in, disguised as John Johnson, because apparently subtlety wasn't their strong suit. He started collecting barrels of gunpowder, bit by bit, under the cover of firewood storage. The plan? Blow up Parliament on opening day, killing the king, lords, and anyone else unlucky enough to be inside. Then install a Catholic monarch. Simple, except for the fact that they kept delaying Parliament, and the group grew from 5 to 13 men. More men meant more whispers, more risks, and more chances for someone to spill the beans. One chilly October evening, Lord Monteagle, an English Catholic nobleman, was preparing to attend Parliament. Suddenly, a masked stranger handed one of his servants a letter. Monteagle opened it, and inside was the most dramatic warning note in history. "My lord, out of the love I bear to some of your friends, I have a care of your preservation. Devise some excuse to shift off your attendance at this Parliament, for though there be no appearance of any stir, yet I say they shall receive a terrible blow." A terrible blow. If that doesn't scream, "Don't go to work tomorrow," I don't know what does. Monteagle didn't waste time. Even though it was late at night, he ordered his horses saddled and galloped straight to Robert Cecil, the spy master and Secretary of State. Cecil was basically England's James Bond, except shorter, hunchbacked, and with a knack for sniffing out treason. Historians have argued for centuries about this. Was it one of the 13 conspirators? Maybe someone got cold feet and decided to save Monteagle. After all, blowing up Parliament meant killing friends, neighbors, and even children. Monteagle himself? Some say he wrote the letter to look loyal to the crown. And guess what? He was rewarded with £500 a year for his heroism. That was a fortune back then, like winning the Tudor lottery. Robert Cecil? The spy master himself. Many believe Cecil already knew about the plot and staged the letter to make himself look like the savior of England. Classic "I told you so" maneuver. On November 4th, the palace was searched. At first, nothing. Guards thought the letter was a hoax, but then someone remembered. Wait, aren't there cellars under Westminster? Enter Sir Thomas Knivet, who led the guards down into the basement. There they found Guy Fawkes, dressed not like a humble watchman, but in riding boots, spurs, hat, and cloak, as if ready to flee at a moment's notice. Suspicious much? They moved the firewood aside and, surprise, 36 barrels of gunpowder. Enough to blow the palace sky high. On Guy they found matches, ready to light the fuse. He was arrested on the spot. On November 6th, King James himself interrogated Guy. "Do you regret this? How could you kill so many, including children?" Guy, cool as ever, replied, "My only regret is that the plan failed." He even insisted his name was still John Johnson. Talk about commitment to the bit. But torture changes everything. Guy was hung by manacles, stretched on the rack until his joints popped. His signature went from bold and confident to a shaky scribble. Finally, he confessed. Meanwhile, Robert Catesby and the others tried to rally Catholics by declaring the king dead. But instead of an army, only about 40 men joined. Worse, they managed to blow themselves up while drying damp gunpowder in front of a fireplace. Pro tip: never do that. One man went blind, others were burned. When asked what to do next, Catesby declared, "We mean here to die." And die they did. On November 8th, the Sheriff of Warwickshire arrived with 200 men. A shootout followed. Catesby was shot, crawled into a chapel, and died clutching a statue of the Virgin Mary. On January 31st, 1606, Guy Fawkes and the survivors were sentenced to be hanged, drawn, and quartered. The crowd screamed, "Traitor!" King James exaggerated, claiming they tried to blow up the entire island of England. Physics says no, but propaganda says yes. Guy, defiant to the end, jumped from the gallows, breaking his neck before the full horror could be carried out. His body was still chopped into pieces and sent to the four corners of England. The gunpowder plot nearly succeeded. If not for that letter, Parliament would have been reduced to rubble, the king dead, and England plunged into civil war. Instead, Parliament passed the Thanksgiving Act of 1606, ordering citizens to give thanks every November 5th. Thus was born Guy Fawkes Night. Bonfires, fireworks, and burning effigies of Guy Fawkes. To this day, people remember the 5th of November. The gunpowder plot had it all: secret letters, spy masters, barrels of doom, and one man who became a legend, not for success, but for failure. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and share. Every follow helps grow this channel. See you in the next one.